we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another very special Out of the Fast Lane podcast. I am your host, Brady Hauser. Start of season I don't know if it's considered season 2, but we'll first say it's season 2 of the channel. Last week, if you guys missed it, we had the great Todd Morey on the show. He is an announcer out of pretty much, he announces all over the country. He's a Monster Jam driver and many more. So if you guys want to go check that video out, make sure you go to my page and look at that. Also, make sure you guys turn on the notification bell. You guys won't miss an upload. I will be sent every time I upload a video, including tonight's video. You will not miss it. You will get a notification when it comes up. We got a couple pretty cool guests coming up next week. A very fan favorite driver, Tanner Holmes, out of, pretty sure it's California. He is a YouTube star and he's a 360 sprint car driver. So we're gonna be happy to have him on the show next week. But tonight we have a street stock driver up in the Northeast. Races at Glen Ridge, and I'm sure there's other tracks he races at. We have Damon Anderson on the show here tonight. So, Damon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brady. Glad to be here.
So, for anybody that doesn't know a little bit about you, if you want to give a little background about yourself.
I started racing in 2013, so I was a little late to the party, for my age, that is. And I started in the street stock division, and then I've been there ever since, having success at, a couple different tracks. Just like everybody else, I'm a working man. I own a business, I work for another person. I stay busy at all times, so if I'm not racing, you pretty much guarantee that I'll be working.
Mm-hmm. So give me a brief rundown on how your 2020 season went this year. I know it was a lot different for a lot of drivers, but how did your season go?
Actually, first performance-wise, it went very well. We came out of the gate with 2 straight wins. Last year was my first year at Glen Ridge. It was kind of my rookie year, and I had a good year, finished second there. So this year, my whole goal was basically just to come out and try to start off on the right foot. Last year I didn't get to. I was under the weather, pneumonia, and all other kind of things, and kind of hindered the points championship chase. So this year we started off with trying to really focus on coming out, doing as well as we could right out of the box. 2 straight wins, and then we ran into some problems. And what I mean by problems, by the 3rd race, my transmission exploded, which took out the drive shaft and it took out the rear end. So it was very expensive, and I didn't even know if I was going to make it back to the track. And I have a great crew chief in Cliff Haslin.
Mm-hmm.
And Cliff offered up a transmission he had in his race car so I could continue my season. And I was able to, I didn't have a set of gears for the rear end, so I ended up just putting multi-gears back into it. Went to Nick Stone, bought a drive shaft, and then we came back out. We struggled with the car for about a couple of weeks, and then we got back to victory lane again. So overall, we did pretty well. We had 15 top 5 finishes, 15 top 10 finishes, 4 heat race wins, and 5 feature wins of the championship.
Mm-hmm. So you are you were the street stock champion up at the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park, which actually I'm happy to announce up there every week. So make sure if you guys ever do get to the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park, I will be there and he will be there for sure. Also, if you guys want to check out that video, like he just mentioned, Cliff Haslin, the great Cliff Haslin, he was on my show. Oh boy, it was a couple months ago for sure. It's been a little bit since Cliffy was on the show. But if you guys want to go back and go and just search way down on all my videos and stuff, you will see that video. So for the people that don't know, what got you started into racing when you were 8? You said you started racing at age 13, but what was there a specific person or what?
2013.
Oh, 2013. So what was there a specific person, or is it just your love of racing that made you want to come race?
I grew up in South Florida, so that's where I was born and raised. I didn't move to New York until the late 90s. While I was growing up, my stepfather owned an asphalt racing team, and we used to go there on Saturday nights and go with the late model. And of course, I was a young kid at that point, so I could just help around the shop when I could. best memories was every time I went to the shop, I got to go to Arby's for dinner. So that was awesome when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And then when I moved here, I actually got out of racing completely and was not around it. I had New Malta and a couple other tracks around. I went to Lebanon Valley once in maybe 99. And then a friend of mine, Diana, asked me to go to races where we're at Malta in 2010. I was like, well, I haven't been to races in forever, so I'll go watch. So I went to watch the race, and she goes, my father races. I go, yeah, who's that? And she told me Ken Dool, who back then drove the 00. And she goes, he was contemplating retirement. I go, why is that? I was like, he's doing well and winning. Why would you want to give up? And she said he didn't have any help in the pits. Just didn't have any help working on the car, and he was just getting tired of it. So I was like, hey, I don't know everything about racing, but I'll be willing to give this guy a hand, And so she set me up with a date to go over his house to work on the car, and next thing you know, I was up there 4 nights a week. And so for the next 3 years, I was just helping him out, trying to, sponsor him when I could, just do things, anything I could, to get him ready to try to keep up at the top of the game. And then 2013 or 12, a friend of mine, Justin Smith, who also raced street stocks at Malta for a couple of years.
I know him.
Yep.
My sister's boyfriend actually works with him. That's actually pretty cool that you mentioned his name. So let's keep going.
Yeah, Justin's a really good guy. I like Justin a lot. He's a good brother of mine. So anyways, Justin messaged me. He goes, hey, buddy. He goes, there's a street stock for sale. I think you should get it. And I go, well, how much? And he goes, well, it's just the chassis. He goes, but $2,000. Because you need to get your own motor and stuff, but $2,000. I was like, man. I was in the middle of doing a tile job. I'm like, well, I could give up this paycheck and the next paycheck and buy a street stock. I was like, I don't know if I should do it. Of course, you entered. They're like, don't do it. And I'm like, all right, heck with it. So I called or messaged the guy, got in touch with him, made a deal, bought the car. And then I was like, all right, it's my first year in racing, so I don't think I'm gonna do much to the car other just put it, maybe throw coat of paint on the old body and just put a motor in it, transmission in, and just go get my feet wet because I don't know a darn thing about the driving aspect. And I come to the shop. It was actually at Justin's uncle's shop. Is where I kept the car. So I went over to Justin's uncle's, and Justin started working on this street stock. I went there one night, and the body was ripped off the chassis. He goes, I can't let you go out like that. He goes, you need to learn how to build this thing from ground up. I go, really, dude? I don't even know what I'm doing yet. And you're going to have me build this thing from ground up? He goes, yeah. He was going to serve you well. So I did. And then 2013 was the rookie year. So that's pretty much how I got into it.
Mm-hmm. So through those first couple of years, how were you like as a racer? I know it was your rookie couple of years. So how did your first couple of seasons go in the street stock?
Back then at Malta, there was big fields, 20, 25 cars every single week. And the first year, I really just wanted to get my feet wet and stay out of everybody's way. I really didn't have any goal set other than just trying to learn it. And I think by the end of the first year, I finished 9th in the point standings at Malta, which is a pretty good, feat for just stepping out of the bleachers and never being among some of the best. And back then, I mean, you had Jason Melch, you had Josh Coonrad, you had Bill Dupree, Randy Miller, all the top guys were running, and so the first year was pretty good, and then the second year I went out there and just tried to learn more. Was hoping to get some top 5 finishes, some top 10s. Had a good year. We ended up 5th points for the second year.
Mm-hmm. So now looking into this past couple seasons, you have been racing up at the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park. What brings you back every year? What brings you back to the Glen Ridge Motorsports Park? What's your favorite part about that track?
Probably the people and the people who run it. Ray and Butch are they're honest, they're straightforward, they're unbiased. I really appreciate how Butch calls a race. Like, I don't believe in dirty racing, and a lot of people like to drive over their head. And I don't believe in it. I believe that, if you pass somebody, you should be able to do it cleanly, no bumpers needed, because otherwise, we can do demolition derbies, and these are very expensive cars. At the end of the day, even street stocks are starting to get pricey. I just don't like the whole demolition thing. So the way Butch calls a race is very appealing to me. And then I just like the whole small atmosphere, especially Glen Ridge, because it's sort of like the little track that's kind of forgotten about, being next door to Fonda, being kind of up on the hill. And I want to see them do well and succeed. So I kind of started there in 2019. I was going there, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't know Cliff. I didn't know anybody. And I think it was about the third race in, Cliff came over and we talked. And then after that, we hit it off. And just when you go there, you know, generally there's no BS, you know, and it's usually pretty good, clean racing. So I just enjoyed that. And the fans, of course, you know, the fans, you know, they make the sport. Without them, there's nothing.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna give a quick shout out to Post Time Photography because most of these photos are theirs, so I don't want to make them mad. A lot of so you're racing some of like good competition up there. One specific driver who has been on the show before is Adam Tranka, and you and him put on a show because I announced the Street Stock feature. You guys put on a show every week. What's that? What's like is there like a bond between you two that you guys like share, or is there something that you guys enjoy, and how is he racing as a competitor? Like what's your favorite part about racing with Adam?
You know, Adam, I really like. He's been in this game a lot longer than I have. He's got way more experience than I do. But I learned, you know, raced or heard of him a couple times at Malta, and I think it was like last year at some point he needed to make a race to Malta, and he didn't have any trailer. And I had an open trailer besides the enclosed that I have. And I said, hey, Adam, and it's like, if you need a trailer, you can come grab mine. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, I'd like to see you make a race. I don't want to see any racer not make a race. So, you know, he was thankful. He come up, we talked a little bit. He asked where I race. I said Glen Ridge, and he asked why. And I was like, well, I just like clean racing. I like the fact that races are called fairly. And I was like, I know it's a tight little bull ring, but you're on the wheel the whole time. You know, you're driving those cars a lot. And then what you know, 2020, he shows up. And as he said in his interview, you know, he just thought he was just going to come do a little testing to it and go back to Malta, and then he ended up liking it. And we had some really good battles. Like I said, Adam knows what he's doing behind the wheel. So it didn't take him long to figure the track out, which was kind of not beneficial to me in a way. But in all fairness, that was good because you always like to have people to race with that are pretty hard. And Harley Shepard does a great job, and Junebug does a great job. But Adam and I, you know, I told Adam, I was like, listen, I was like, I want you to race here. It was like, that's fine with me. I was like, just keep it clean because we don't want to wreck fest. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I like the sound of that. And the next thing you know, I mean, points at one point that we had were gone. We were tied in the point standings. So I'm like, holy crap. I was like, I either got to step up my game or this guy's going to take it. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, we had some troubles and whatnot. He had a little bit of bad luck, and it was a good rivalry for a year, I think. I enjoyed racing with Adam, you know, minus one little mishap, but, you know, that happens. I think, you know, he did a very good job this year. And I myself, you know, I feel confident with certain people like him and Cliff and those guys, where if you get side by side and you're in a heated battle, that you're not going to end up in a wall or the tire because of it. And I think Adam and I proved that on a night where both of our cars weren't really handling that well. And we raced hard for like 15 laps, and we were side by side. He was high, I was high, he was low. You know, we just kept bouncing back and forth. And I think I ended up beating him by a bumper. And I got out of the car, and I was like, man, I never ran so hard for a second place finish. And then I was heading back to the fence, and he's like waving me over. So I go up to him, he goes, man, that was so awesome. I go, yeah, it's a lot of fun when you don't beat bang, you just run hard. And so overall, I think Adam was a good asset to the Speedway. You know, I enjoyed racing with him.
I definitely hope for the fans' sake and my sake, because I know next year, because of Honda, they got rid of their street stock division. There's gonna be a lot of street stocks at the Ridge in Malta. So I hope Adam comes back to the Ridge next year, because he was one of the, besides you and him, him, and Harley Shepard were like the big three up there every week, and it was awesome to watch. So hopefully next year we'll get some more competition up there, and it'll make the show even better than what it already is. All right, so let's see. What other racetracks have you gotten the chance to race at besides Glen Ridge and Albany Saratoga Speedway?
I raced Devil's Bowl before as well. I went up there back in 2017, I believe it was. Yeah, 2017. I went up, took a trip up to Devil's Bowl. So, I like to get out more, but, with the rules the way they are in the street stock division, it makes it hard sometimes to travel from track to track to track. And then you got to look at finances, and you got to look at the fact that how much time's in your schedule to do so. And so, those 3 tracks, the only ones I physically raced at. I had hopes of doing the Syracuse Mile, and that never happened. That got taken away from us.
Yeah. Fonda? Have you gotten any chance?
I raced Fonda once too, so that makes 4 tracks.
Okay.
I did that in 2013. Funny story, because it was in 2013. We had some rainouts. And it was my rookie year in street stocks. And I got sick of a couple of rainouts we had at Malta, so I said, you know what? I was like, I'm going to get Fonda a try. And everybody's like, oh, you should go ahead and do it. Just get your feet wet. The more time you have behind the wheel, the better off you'll be. I was like, all right, I agree. So I went to Fonda. And back then, the rules were actually going back to rules. They were specifically different. Back then, Fonda street stocks had 8-inch American Racer tires, and they had 4 barrels along with headers and whatnot. And Malta's rules were different. You had a 2-barrel car, you had street tires, and stock exhaust. So I went through tech, and tech's like, well, you're going to get lapped. So just do your best to stay out of the way. I go, here, I'm not here to ruin anybody's points because I'm not racing here full time. So I believe when you pop into a track, you race with respect. I was like, so I'll stay out of the way. Don't you worry about that. Well, I started 13, and by the end of the race, I was up to a top 5. And it was pretty amazing because, nobody even expected me to be in the top 10. I mean, everybody expected me to get lapped, and yet I was up there battling these guys. And I'm like, what the heck? You know what I mean? And it was a fun time to go. Totally different than what I've done at all these short tracks. That's kind of like a Daytona 500 away in a car. You're just wide open.
So, for you as a driver, this is not a topic and I don't like to go through, but what goes through your mind when you're going to crash? For example, looking at this one photo, it looks like you took a little ride at Malta one night. First of all, what happened that night? And then second of all, what's processing through your mind when you're taking a crash or gonna flip over like that?
The first thing is, that particular night was it was a night that I started at least 10th in the field, and by lap 5 I was up to 3rd. So I was coming up through, and that particular race, Chase Oscar was leading. Josh Coonrat was behind Chase. I was on the outside of Josh, and I believe it was Jason Meltz behind me, but I could be wrong, but I think it was him. And something happened to Chase. I don't know if he ran out of gas or what happened, but he slowed right up on the front stretch. And I was on the outside of Josh, and Josh swerved to miss Chase, so he wouldn't rear end him. In return, got into my left rear quarter, which turned me back into Chase. And at that point, we were okay, and whoever was behind me slammed me in the rear end. And that jumped me on Chase's car, and from there I went to a barrel spin. And I ended up spinning, I think, 4 or 5 times down the front stretch. So that was I was mad when I got out of the car because it was disappointing because the car was fast. So I was on the move. I had a chance to win that race that night, and it just didn't happen. So yeah, that was an interesting night to say the least. And secondly, when you get in a fall direction, you just hope that you don't crash your car beyond repair. Like, you don't want frame damage, you don't want stuff like that. You want, you know it's going to suck. You know it's going to, that generally doesn't turn out well for you. Every now and then you do get lucky, especially if you can miss the implement tires and miss the walls. But you just hope the damage is not so severe that you can't come back the next week. Because, like it is in every class, it gets expensive. If you don't have good sponsors behind you, it makes you tough to bounce back, week after week after week if you have something bad happen.
Mm-hmm. So, during the COVID break, during March and all that stuff, there was not really anything going on. And during that time, iRacing jumped out, and everybody started loving iRacing. Did you get any chance to watch the iRacing or try it?
I watched a couple of them, for bits and pieces. I never got to try it, mainly because I worked so much. I know it sounds boring, but I took tonight off to be here on your show. Typically, I am right now at work, and I'll leave my house 7 in the morning. I'll get back to about 9 at night, and I am so focused on trying to I bought a house this year during COVID, and I'm trying to fix that thing up. I'm trying to make the garage bigger, trying to come up with money for the race car, and still keep, the kids fed and heating the house and all that fun stuff. So generally, boring as it is, I work a ton, so I really don't have a chance to get on there to actually try it myself.
Well, first of all, you did not have to take tonight off. We could have done this another time. Okay. So looking at NASCAR and dirt racing in general, there's been so many races that have happened. Is there any specific? This is just a curiosity question. Any specific races or memories that you can remember that was like, wow, I was glad I got to watch that, or wow, I was glad I was a part of this, or is there anything that, or any year, NASCAR, anything?
I mean, NASCAR back in the 80s, and late 80s, early 90s, where I lived in South Florida, we had a group of NASCAR racers that had shops generally close to that place. And one of them was Bobby Allison, Davey Allison, and all those guys. And so it was kind of cool as a kid. I remember, seeing them. As far as actually on the track stuff, probably, my two favorite drivers are always Tim Richmond and Dale Earnhardt. And mainly because those two had an uncanny driving style. And they were kind of like the bad boys of sport, So I've got to see Earnhardt a bunch of times on track, so every one of those are pretty good memories.
Mm-hmm.
Got to meet people like Harry Gant and Kenny Wallace and all those types. So, the newest stuff I really don't pay attention to because, again, I'm still working. I got my own racing program to work on when I'm not, working. And if I spend too much time paying attention to them, I'm not going to spend enough time paying attention to where it should be.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. All right. So, if you got the chance to race any driver, past or present, it can be any series, any division, it could be cars, bikes, whatever you got, trucks, anything. Who would it be and why?
I would have to choose probably Steve Kinser. He's an old school sprint car driver that just has wheeled those things to the top of the level, won so many races and championships, and he was, back in the day, always one of the guys to beat. So I would say probably him. I think why? Because he was so great. He was so great at what he did. And just to have the chance to race against somebody who's really great at what they do, as you know, especially with, even like you and your podcast you got upcoming guests coming on, it's a chance of a lifetime. You got to take it, right?
Yeah. For example, we do have speaking of that, we do have make sure you guys stay tuned for that. He knows who it is, but I told him to be quiet about it. We do have somebody that's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to talk to somebody on this show in a couple of weeks, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But all right, so if you got the opportunity to race in a big block or for, say, a sportsman or anything like that, and you got to move up from the street stocks, would you take that opportunity?
Yes, I would. I've been in a sportsman car before. A friend of mine let me take his out, and I would have to, just get up the pace real quick on the quick steering because I don't run quick steering quickeners or nothing in my car. But other than that, it was actually quite fun from the standpoint of I was able to lay into the gas and stand on it and actually have the car stick. Those cars handle from, their handling can be off for people, don't get me wrong. But overall, just jumping in and not knowing anything about setups are a little bit easier to drive. Well, actually, they are easier to drive than what I drive. I've been in a Pro Stock, I've been in a Sportsman, I've been in a four-cylinder, and obviously in the street stocks, and I still think the street stocks are one of the hardest to drive.
Mm-hmm. So, in the past couple of years, this year, you debuted a very patriotic scheme. Could you tell me a little bit about the scheme and what it's about and why you picked it?
Yeah, I know the whole controversial one, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have any major sponsors. The major sponsor of this car ever since I built has pretty much been me. It's all out of pocket. I have a couple of little small sponsors, but pretty much week to week and in the off season, it's all out of my pocket, which in return is why I work so much. I chose it because not that was on one side of a fence or another. I chose the fact that I enjoy freedoms, as you know, and I enjoy, just keeping people's rights and having, I don't like pay a lot of taxes. I'm a firm believer that the less you pay, the more people will spend out there and drive up the economy, which is good. So, being I didn't have that, I was very disappointed with the way the other side of the fence was going with just all the name calling and, just lie after lie. And I think if you watch TV all the time, you can kind of get sucked into believing something that may not be true. And so I chose to go with Trump because I just felt that if you don't have a sponsor, and rather than having a blank panel, might as well either when I did, I was like, either I'm going to gain a whole bunch of fans, new fans that I've never had, or I'm going to have a lot of people hate me. I was like, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to bring the cars to the track. And so I did. What I found out in the racing world is majority of them really love the car.
Mm. So people at home, I try not to keep it political. Don't mind that. But his paint scheme has a purpose behind it, so that's why I asked. Here's another cool question about your car. Why did you pick the number 5? Is there a backstory or somebody that you loved as a younger kid that made you want to be the number 5?
Actually, that would be one of my football numbers. Growing up from age 5 to age 17, I played organized football. Of course, I wasn't 6'3", 240, so scouts don't love. But I grew up in South Florida, and down in South Florida, a lot of athletes kids are real big, So I played football, and I had 3 numbers in the football throughout all my years of playing. 12 years of playing, I had 3 numbers: 10, 11, and 5. And at the time, 11 was taken by Nathan DeHoda, and somebody else had a 10 car. I can't remember exactly who it was, but nobody was running the 5 car. So, all right, well, that'll be my number. So I threw 5 on it.
Nice. So, all right, let's see. What else we got? So what has to be your favorite racing memory for either you or, like, if you see, actually, let's do that. What is your favorite racing memory for you as a race car driver? What was the most memorable night in racing for you?
Probably 2016, because where that picture was of me rolling over,
mm-hmm.
The car got craned back on the trailer, and a guy who my mentor in sport, Kendall, he had looked at me and said, "You know what? Take 2 weeks off. Go through the car and make sure it's right before you come back." And I was upset, so I was like, whatever. So Justin Smith teamed up with me, and we pounded that car out for a week straight. And we made it back to Malta that following Friday night. Didn't miss no time. That Friday night, I ended up finishing 3rd with the bent-up race car. And I think Randy Mill and Bill Dupree were the 2 that were ahead of me. And then I went on probably not even a month later from that rollover to getting my first win at Albany Saratoga Speedway in the street stock division. And led start to finish, won the restarts with Coonrat behind me and Jason Meltz there on the outside of me, and just being able to pull that off that night, which ultimately went on to get me the most memorable moment award for that division in 2016 as well.
Mm. All right, so I'm going to have a couple more questions for you. Do you happen to have a nickname?
Not yet. I'm waiting for the announcers to figure that one out.
All right, let's see.
Because I feel that's something that announcers should do. I mean, anybody can come up with a nickname, but I think it's better when you earn it. And usually the announcers, they kind of follow you and what you do, and they see your different habits and styles, and I really think it's up to them to decide that. I know everybody has their own opinions, and that's fine. But until they name me one, no, I don't have one.
Mm-hmm. I was actually fortunate enough this year. I actually started something down at Fonda because I started announcing a little bit there with Dirt Track Digest TV and Jay Severson. And I'm friends with Brendan Gibbons, and I was just talking to them guys, Paul Schmall and Jay Severson on the mic, and everybody could hear it. I told them a story about how Gibbons' uncle or grandfather flew the B-24 bomber, and that's why his number was B-24. And then Paul Schmall said, Brady, you just came up with a new nickname for a driver. And I'm like, what is that? And ever since that night, I was able to... I started the nickname The Bomber for Brendan Gibbons, and ever since then, it's stick for him. He even put it on his 2021 car, which is actually pretty cool. So I'm gonna start thinking for something for you for next year, for sure. I'm gonna have to think about it. I'm gonna try to find something that rhymes or something that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find something, even if it doesn't rhyme, it makes somewhat kind of sense. We'll
There's people that come along, you know, you get some young guns, which I get it. You know, everybody wants their little nickname. They just come up with one, you know. And I just, like I said, I think the announcers are the ones.
Mr. Controversy.
You know, it could be controversy, but whatever. Consistency. I mean, there's a lot of things out there. Of course, you know, next year's car's not going to look like that. Because that whole season of it is over. I'm trying to work on a sponsor package for next year, but we'll see what comes along. I'd like to actually nail 2 tracks next year if possible. But again, it's all based on money.
So speaking of that, we're definitely gonna throw one of these on there next year.
Oh, definitely can.
Yeah, I have about 100 of these things, so I gotta get rid of them. So, if you also want a sticker on anybody watching, just DM me. I might be able to hook you up with one. All right, so I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions, and then I'll let you do your sponsor shout out. And if you have any questions for me, you can ask that. All right. So, what other hobbies do you enjoy besides racing? I know you said you worked a lot, but is there anything else you enjoy?
Well, I do. I definitely, you know, swimming is one of my things. I love barbecues. You know, that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you work as much as you do, you take advantage of those things. Hobbies, you know, I like playing pool. I like shooting darts. I like cornhole. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I just work so much. I mean, even during a racing season, I work just about every single night and then come home and work in the shop until 11 or whatever to get ready for race day. I'm one of those odd individuals. I believe that, you know, in order to get anything in life, nothing's handed to you. You got to work for it. And I think even on your post, I told you one day, you know, one time when you were looking for that post documentary, I'm like, hey, just work for it, man. Just work for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. I mean, I've never expected a hand up from anybody. And anytime I do get it, any help, you know, I am extremely thankful because I just, you know, there's one person you can count on is yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's how I look at it. And so I work so much. I mean, it even drives my girlfriend insane, you know, but she's a very good sport about it. She comes from a racing family. She understands it. So, unfortunately, I just work a lot. I'm very boring, dude.
Mm-hmm. So, out of all of the things that you get to do in the racing world, what has to be the best part about it? Is it the speed, the fans? What for you? What is it?
I think it's the whole package. Like seeing fans and having fans come up and talk to you is a pretty cool feeling, and I think every single one of them are important. You know, so I always take time out for those. I enjoy being on the starting lineup when you're kind of going through your mind, okay, how's this going to play out? You know, I wonder how tonight's going to be. And then when you pull out onto the speedway, it's like all that goes away. Now you only have one goal, what you're focused on, and is trying to get around the circle as fast as anybody else. And then from the time you take the drop of the green flag, for me, it's pretty much just focus. Do your things, try to find different lines to try to make your car go. And then, you know, of course, if you do get fortunate enough to take the checkers, you know, that's an awesome feeling in itself. Well, I'm not one to brag about that, so I would just say pretty much the whole experience, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's all I'm going to have for you tonight. You got any questions you would like to ask me? Feel free.
I know you got that big star coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciate the fact that you do take the time out for the local guys, because I think that's really where it's at. You know, the big guys are obviously they go through their dealings and they're fortunate enough to get there, and I think that's great. And that's awesome for them. But I want to thank you for what you do, because there's not too many of you young guys who show interest in that, and I really think that's great for sport. Sport needs that. So again, I think that what you do is great, and I want you to keep up the good work and keep going at it. I think your future is bright with it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Any sponsors that you would like to give a shout out to, or people, anybody? Just it's yours.
Yeah, I mean, for this season, I want to dedicate the championship season this year to a friend of ours, actually a friend of the 14s team, but she's a friend of mine too, Diane Gorn-Barnes. She was a pit member. She always loved rooting for me. Even though I was in a different division, she was just an awesome person. So I want this season to be in memory of her. I'd like to give a shout out to Cliff Haslam, because without his help this year, there's no way we would have gotten the championship. So his help was very valuable and tremendously appreciated. I'd like to thank all the people associated with Glen Ridge Motorsports Park, because without them, we wouldn't have had a place to race this year. And they did their hardest with all the COVID things going on to be able to at least allow us to get out there and race. I have my crew, my girlfriend, of course. You know, it's without her, then, you know, you get in trouble. You know how that game goes. Mm-hmm. And then from there, from the sponsorship standpoint, Biscuits Bakery, they were involved this year. Sir Brandon, he's a good friend of mine. Without his help, you know, everybody's a spoke in the wheel, if you know what I mean. And it takes every bit of that to make it happen. I'd like to thank DFR Racing for, you know, trying to help me with setups and stuff throughout the season. We had tried a bunch of them, and, you know, we really never got the car 100% where I wanted it to be, but it was good enough to do what I needed to do with it. Let's see, who else? Sierra Custom Trailers. They're a trailer. They will manufacture and build any custom trailer you want it to be, from a race car trailer all the way down to an outdoor bar, boat trailers, whatever. He always jumps on and takes care of all my trailer needs, and, you know, if I need brakes on it or whatever, you know, and then if I need stuff to bad for the race car, you know, he helps me out there. So, you know, a great appreciated help to him as well.
Well, Damon, I thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. If you guys are new to the channel, like I said, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys like what you are seeing on the show, we're gonna have a lot more guests coming on the show. So make sure, like I said, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and turn that notification bell on. Damon, I thank you again for coming on the show. Everybody watching, I think the next show will be sometime in the next couple weeks, or it might be actually Wednesday. I might have somebody planned that you guys are gonna get to watch an episode of. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Damon Anderson, the driver of number 5. He runs at Glen Ridge and all the other tracks that he talked about. And so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.